की सुरक्षा, वीर सैनिकों के अदम्य साहस और युवाओं में राष्ट्र सेवा की भावना को समर्पित कारगिल विजय दिवस एवं ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के उपलक्ष्य में पणजी स्थित कला अकादमी में एक विशेष कार्यक्रम का आयोजन किया गया। इस अवसर पर छात्रों, एनसीसी कैडेट्स, पूर्व सैनिकों, सैन्य अधिकारियों और विभिन्न क्षेत्रों से आए गणमान्य लोगों ने बड़ी संख्या में भाग लिया। कार्यक्रम का उद्देश्य कारगिल के वीर शहीदों को श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करने के साथ साथ युवाओं को भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों में करियर बनाने के लिए प्रेरित करना रहा। कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत विद्यार्थियों के लिए आयोजित एक विशेष संवाद सत्र से हुई। इस दौरान सेवानिवृत्त एयर मार्शल संदेश प्रभाकर वागले ने भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों में उपलब्ध करियर के विभिन्न अवसरों की विस्तृत जानकारी दी। उन्होंने छात्रों को सेना, नौसेना और वायुसेना में सेवा के महत्व, चयन प्रक्रिया और अनुशासन पूर्ण जीवन के बारे में बताया। इस संवाद सत्र में गोवा के विभिन्न उच्च माध्यमिक विद्यालयों, कॉलेजों और एनसीसी इकाइयों के छात्र छात्राओं ने उत्साहपूर्वक भाग लिया और अपने सवाल भी पूछे। शाम को आयोजित मुख्य समारोह में देशभक्ति और सम्मान का माहौल देखने को मिला। समारोह में गोवा के मुख्यमंत्री डॉक्टर प्रमोद सावंत मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में शामिल हुए। उनके साथ भारतीय सेना के पूर्व थल सेना प्रमुख जनरल वेद प्रकाश मलिक, कई पूर्व सैन्य अधिकारी, जनप्रतिनिधि तथा समाज के विभिन्न क्षेत्रों से जुड़े गणमान्य नागरिक भी उपस्थित रहे। सभी ने कारगिल युद्ध के वीर सैनिकों के शौर्य, साहस और सर्वोच्च बलिदान को नमन किया। कार्यक्रम के दौरान कारगिल युद्ध में शहीद हुए जवानों को भावभीनी श्रद्धांजलि भी अर्पित की गई। उनके अदम्य साहस, कर्तव्य निष्ठा और राष्ट्र के प्रति समर्पण को याद करते हुए वक्ताओं ने कहा कि कारगिल विजय भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों की वीरता, रणनीति और अटूट संकल्प का प्रतीक है। ये विजय देशवासियों को हमेशा राष्ट्रहित को सर्वोपरि रखने की प्रेरणा देती रहेगी। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के संदर्भ में भी भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों की सतर्कता, क्षमता और राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा के प्रति उनकी प्रतिबद्धता को रेखांकित किया गया। कार्यक्रम में इस बात पर विशेष जोर दिया गया कि देश की सुरक्षा केवल सीमाओं पर तैनात सैनिकों की जिम्मेदारी नहीं, बल्कि प्रत्येक नागरिक का भी कर्तव्य है कि वो राष्ट्र के प्रति अपनी जिम्मेदारियों का ईमानदारी से निर्वहन करे। कार्यक्रम के अंत में युवाओं से भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों में शामिल होकर देश सेवा का संकल्प लेने का आह्वान किया गया। पूरे आयोजन में देशभक्ति, सम्मान और प्रेरणा का वातावरण देखने को मिला।
So, what I'm going to talk to you about initially of the Kargil war, then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Op Sindoor, which all of you will be well familiar with because you all must have seen a lot of it in the media. So, the Kargil war was codenamed Op Vijay by India, and it was fought between India and Pakistan from May to July 1999 in the Kargil district of Ladakh. Okay. The conflict was essentially triggered by the infiltration of Pakistani troops. The Pakistani troops disguised themselves as militants into the strategic positions on the Indian side of the line of control. So this, what you see on the map, is the crown of India. That is the entire Jammu and Kashmir. This was what India got during partition. This portion, which is Karakoram range, Gilgit, northern areas, and here you can see Muzaffarabad, this area is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which we lost in 1948. This is Aksai Chin, which we lost in 1962 to China. This is the Shaksgam Valley, which Pakistan gave to China in 1965. This is the Siachen Glacier. Can you see? Could you all see the Siachen Glacier which I showed? Yes, sir. Okay. This India occupied in 1984, and this is disputed by Pakistan. They say that is theirs, but we are in occupation of the Siachen Glacier. And the rest of this area is the Kashmir, which is with India. This is where the entire battle was fought, in the area of Kargil. This border, which runs between India and Pakistan, is called the line of control. This border which runs between India and Aksai Chin or Tibet, which now China occupies, is called the line of actual control. Understood? Yes, sir. Good. Now, the Kargil war is an example of high altitude warfare in the mountainous terrain. It posed significant logistics problems for both the combating sides. Okay? Because it's very difficult to move any stuff, any of these goods into the mountains because there are no roads. Everything has to be carried either on your backs or on the backs of mules. The Indian Army, supported by the Indian Air Force, recaptured a major portion of the illegally occupied positions which the Pakistanis had illegally occupied. Because they were facing a humiliating defeat and international condemnation, the Pakistani forces withdrew from the few remaining Indian positions in July of 99. The Indian Air Force was first approached to provide air support on 11th May 99 with the use of helicopters. But the Chief of Air Staff convinced the government that in order to create a suitable environment for the helicopters to operate, fighter action was required. And the Indian Air Force codenamed its operations in Vijay as Operation Safed Sagar. This is the MiG-21 and this is the upgraded Bison. Okay? The MiG-21 also operated extensively there. Now, high altitudes is a very crucial factor in aircraft performance because as you go up, the density of the air reduces, so there is less of air. So the engines do not operate as efficiently. So typically fighters, when they attack at sea level. It's extremely rare for the fighters to operate at such high levels. Now, due to very different attributes of the atmosphere at high altitude, the weapons do not perform as they perform at sea level because of the variations in temperatures and air density. And these cause the weapons to go off the mark. Wherever you aim, they don't fall there, they fall elsewhere because of the variation in temperatures and density. And no fighter aircraft has ever been designed for fighting battles at the altitudes of the Kargil, which was between 14 and 18,000 feet. Okay, so it is very, very difficult for the fighter aircraft to operate there. Which is this aircraft? Anybody? Yeah. Excellent. Mirage 2000. This was the main destroyer of Pakistani positions during Kargil operations in Safed Sagar, because this was the only aircraft which was capable of doing precision bombing. What is the load it is dropping? Anybody? Okay, it is dropping 8 250 kilo bombs. 250 kilos is one of those bombs, and there are 8 of them. So 2,000 tons of explosive is being dropped on the target. Okay, you can imagine how powerful the explosion will be on the ground. Now in the planes, if you drop this bomb load, everything in the area of about 100 meters or 200 meters around it will get completely flattened. But in the mountains, if these bombs fall even 10-15 meters away, okay, like look at this podium. Now imagine this is a mountain. If the bomb just falls side and it falls down, this top is not affected. The damage happens in the valley below. But on a plain area, if the bombs fall there, the whole plain area is affected. You understand the difference? So therefore, when operating in the hills, it was extremely difficult for the fighters. If they did not bomb with pinpoint accuracy, you could do nothing. The enemy was not affected at all.
Kargil was a unique war, and it will go down in our history both as a saga of bravery, valor, as well as sacrifice. And when we celebrate this day, which we have been doing now for the last 27 years, there are 3 things that we must remember. First, of course, we must pay homage to all those officers and men who participated and who lost their life, killed in action for the sake of the nation. And that's what we did in the morning, and that's what we did today also, here also, by standing and maintaining 1 minute silence. The second thing is to know about the war. And this, I believe, is very important for our young generation. You need to know about the war, what happened, and even more important is to remember the lessons that we learned during that war. It's not just knowing the war, but more important is to learning the lessons from that war. And the third, which is again important for our young generation, for the youth, is एक शपथ लेना आज के दिन, make a resolve that in future, if we have to protect our country, if we have to defend our country, we shall also fight with that kind of valor that we saw during Kargil war, and that kind of prepared to take that kind of a sacrifice, which I hope you will do it. Now, I'll start with a brief introduction about what happened in Kargil war and very briefly tell you the story about it. First, let's see where it happened. You see on the map Jammu and Kashmir, and on that, in 99 incidentally, Jammu and Kashmir also included Ladakh and Kargil. On the map, I'll draw a line, which is, the purple line is line of control, and the yellow line is line of, it is called actual ground position line in Siachen area. And if you, some of you would remember, we occupied Siachen in 1984 before Pakistan tried to send its troops to this area. That is the yellow line. This is the kind of terrain. Some of you, I mean, I'm sure most of you would not have been to that area yet, and but you must know what kind of terrain it was. This photograph, these are all actual photographs of Siachen and Kargil sector. Again, this is Siachen sector, and you find this kind of sudden dips taking place in the terrain, particularly in the month of May and June. This is the way we patrol those areas. People are holding on to rope all along. The patrol goes, and then they help each other in surmounting some of the obstacles that we come in their way, particularly, as I said, during winter areas. This is the kind of helipad that we had initially. And you see a small helipad which has been, and you require a lot of skill really to be able to land on that. And this is a improvised helipad on top of some stones and some other tins. They have put a parachute, and the helicopters are expected to land there. Incidentally, in this area, the helicopter load that they carry is just about 25%. Air Marshal Wagle is here, and he would know it much more, that you can only carry 25% of load because of the high altitude and that kind of climate there. These are pictures from Kargil sector. This is the famous Tiger Hill. You would hear about it again and again. Probably the most prominent and most awe-inspiring feature that we have, which had been occupied by the Pakistanis. And that was recaptured by us on 4th of July. Now the story starts from the time of 21st February, when India and Pakistan Prime Minister, they met each other in Lahore, and they signed Lahore agreement, which stated that we will not fight with each other, and we will resolve all our problems by holding meetings and meeting each other. But then within 3 months, we had to fight this war. And the culprit was then Army Chief of Pakistan, Pervez Musharraf. In fact, when this agreement was being signed in Lahore, he was already preparing to intrude in our territory through those gaps that we have in, large gaps that we have between the mountains and our posts. So that is the kind of a surprise, and the lesson that you learn is that we have to be prepared always. We have to be prepared for these kind of surprises. So this is again the map I have drawn, and this is what they did in the month of April, May and June. And they all came, those people who came, they were all wearing black salwar kameez, showing that they were terrorists. Although they were not terrorists, they were Pakistani army people. But they wanted to show. And similarly, on the radio nets also, they posed as if they were all terrorists from different areas of Pakistan. Now, we had a lot of challenges at that time. It was not just a surprise, but the challenges were there. First, of course, the major challenge was to fight in a terrain which is mountainous, high altitude, and which had at that time very heavy snow, and area was glaciated, as I've shown you in the pictures also. Then there was intelligence failure. We never got any intelligence that these people were preparing for such a mission. As I told you, the Prime Minister was signing a Lahore agreement, and the army, Pakistan Army, was doing something else. And so it became a surprise both from politician point of view as well as from the military point of view. And surveillance also, we had major weaknesses those days because we did not have any technology. What is available today, the satellite imagery, the drones, the radars and all those things, ground radars and all, those days we did not have anything. In fact, I can say that even the GPS that we possessed were also not very accurate. And sometimes people did go across the line of control without even knowing these things. Jihadi deception that I have told you, that they tried to deceive not only us, but even their own people politically as well as their own public, that the Pakistan army is not doing anything, and it is only the jihadis who have gone across. And they kept on repeating it time and again till this whole deception plan was exposed, and they were exposed on this thing. We had a lot of shortages of arms, ammunition, and this thing. Because of financial shortages, in fact, particularly of the foreign exchange, during those days we were working on 70%, bottom line we call it, 70% of our equipment. And in some weapons and equipment, the shortages were even less than 50%. But that was a kind of a thing because our economy was not doing too well. And if you remember, some of you would remember that we had to even send our gold to London and get money. That was the state of our availability of foreign exchange with us. And then because 1 year earlier we had carried out nuclear tests, so we had become a rogue nation as far as the Western world is concerned. And we were not having any communication with the Western. My daughter was getting married during that period in the month of June 98. And because of the non-communication between the two countries, I couldn't go and attend her wedding. Now that was the state of affairs. And we never got any information, any intelligence, any help. Even when we asked for weapons and all, they just refused. That was the kind of a situation that we faced. And again, I think the big lesson is Atmanirbharta, which now I'm glad to see that we are pursuing it. Now this map shows the gaps that we had. Now these are very high mountains, and obviously there are valleys, deep valleys, and we did not have technical equipment at that time for surveillance purposes. And it had become a practice for so many years that during winter, both Pakistan as well as Indian Army used to vacate some of these posts. And because large number of large-sized troops could not go through that, so it was maintained In fact, that is another reason why Pakistan failed, because they had not calculated what kind of logistics they would require when they inducted their troops into our area. Their intention was to cut off our road going from Srinagar to Kargil and Leh. And they felt that by doing that, they will be able to recapture Siachen area. Now, Pervez Musharraf had been a brigadier in Siachen area. When he was a brigadier, he tried 2-3 times to capture some of our posts, and he failed. And that was probably in his mind, and he was looking forward to recapturing some of the areas where he had failed earlier. So the main purpose was to cut off our communication from Srinagar going across Sojila to Kargil and Leh, and with that they hope that they will be able to negotiate Kashmir from a position of strength, and they also wanted to make use of this area to spread insurgency or terrorism as they had been doing for so many years in the past. So we started Operation Vijay when we started detecting their troops. For some time, almost 15-20 days, we had no idea who they were, where they had come, and where all they were, spread and what. So it took us 15-20 days, and I call it very thick fog of war. But during that period, we lost a lot of soldiers at that time. But once we got to know who they were, that they were all Pakistani army people, they were getting full support from their armed forces, from the Air Force also. Then we launched Operation Vijay after a meeting that was held on 23rd of May, and I was Army Chief as well as Chairman Chiefs of Staff Committee, and we gave a presentation to the Cabinet Committee of Security. And that is the day when the 3 services, we were all there, service chiefs were there. We took permission from the Cabinet that all 3 services will work together, Army, Navy, as well as Air Force. And we will make a joint military strategy. I'll talk about that a little later. And that is how then we were given that permission, go ahead. And the political mandate that was given to us was, first, of course, that they wanted to announce the world that we are a victim of intrusion, but we will exercise restraint. And because of that, they did not permit us to cross the border, our international border, anywhere.
कारगिल विजय दिवस और ऑपरेशन सिंदूर को समर्पित ये कार्यक्रम न केवल वीर सैनिकों के बलिदान को याद करने का अवसर बना, बल्कि नई पीढ़ी में राष्ट्र प्रेम, अनुशासन और सेवा की भावना को मजबूत करने का भी सशक्त माध्यम साबित हुआ।